What if I told you that Ferrari wasn't hiding more power, but rather a problem that left Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton completely shocked after 3 days of testing in Bahrain? Subscribe to continue uploading more of this type of content now, if we continue. Because what they discovered inside the box was not a minor detail. It was not a simple matter of settings. It was something much more delicate. Something that can turn the SF26 into the scariest car on the grid or into a time bomb ready to explode when you least expect it. For 3 days in Sakir, Ferrari showed speed. He showed rhythm. He showed potential. But it also revealed an uncomfortable truth. A technical secret that was not seen in the lap times. And when Hamilton understood it, his reaction said it all. The big question is Ferrari facing a champion car or facing the most risky concept they have built in years? The first day in Bahrain did not begin with euphoria. It started with silence. Ferrari arrived at Sakir knowing that the SF26 was a much more aggressive concept than the previous car. What they did not know was to what extent that aggressiveness was going to condition the entire behavior of the car. The first laps were methodical. Installation program, systems check, aerodynamic correlation. On the straight, the car was impressive. The hybrid deployment was forceful, the top speed was where it should be, and the engineers were seeing encouraging numbers on the monitors. But Bahrain is not just straight. When the car entered fast corners, especially in areas where the side wind hits with intensity, the first warning sign appeared. It wasn't violent oversteer. It was not an obvious loss. It was something more subtle, small oscillations in the rear load that forced the steering wheel to be corrected a fraction earlier than expected. That's where it all started. Charles Leclerc was the first to notice this duality. When the car entered its perfect window of temperature and balance, it felt solid, even dominant. But if the tire was not exactly in the ideal range, or if the asphalt varied just a few degrees, the rear axle became livelier. Not unpredictable, but yes delicate. Lewis Hamilton, who was still adapting to the behavior of the Ferrari, felt it differently. For him, it wasn't just a matter of grip. It was the feeling that the car demanded absolute precision in each phase of a corner. If I braked half a meter later, if I released the pedal with a different progression, the balance changed. And that is not common in a car that aspires to the championship. The second day was the real turning point. Ferrari began to simulate long runs. There the real potential of the SF26 was seen. The average pace was competitive. The degradation did not seem alarming. The car was efficient when everything was under control. But Bahrain has changing winds, and the wind exposed problem. In certain laps, when the direction of the air varied slightly in the second sector, the flow that fed the rear diffuser was not stable. This generated small load peaks followed by micro losses. Not enough to cause a spin, but enough to break trust. Leclerc described it as a car that could feel on rails one lap and demanding to the limit in the next. Hamilton was more direct in private. The car had performance, but the operating window was extremely narrow. And that's where they understood what Ferrari had really built. SF26 was not conservative. It was a concept taken to the aerodynamic limit. A package designed to maximize maximum performance, even if that meant sacrificing tolerance to external variations. The third day was the attempt at a solution. Ferrari worked on the rear suspension, seeking more mechanical stability to compensate for aerodynamic sensitivity. They adjusted MGUK maps to smooth out power delivery on corner exit. They tried to expand that window of operation. The car improved slightly in consistency, but the nature of the concept was still there. When everything came together, the SF26 was fearsome. When something went off course, it became delicate. And that's what really impacted both drivers. They did not come out worried about lack of rhythm. They came away aware that they will need surgical precision every weekend. Because in Bahrain, they discovered that the Ferrari 2025 does not forgive mistakes. And in a long season, that can make the difference between dominating or suffering. The third day in Bahrain did not end with celebration. It ended with a long meeting. Because after 3 intense days, Ferrari was already clear that the SF26 was not simply a fast car, it was a demanding car to the extreme. And that's where the real worry began. During the final simulations, when the fuel dropped and the car had to stabilize at a constant pace, a repetitive pattern appeared. Small balance oscillations in critical phases. Not always on the same curve. Not always in the same sector. But enough to prevent the driver from attacking with total confidence lap after lap. That's what impacted Lewis Hamilton the most. Not the speed, not maximum downforce, but the inconsistency at the limit. Because a champion car must not only be fast, It should allow performance to be repeated without punishing the driver every turn. Hamilton understood something in Bahrain that he did not expect to discover so soon. The SF26 requires total adaptation of style. It cannot be piloted reactively. You have to anticipate it. You have to drive thinking 2 phases ahead. Charles Leclerc also understood it, but from another angle. For him, the car had brutal potential in qualifying. When the tire was at its exact point, the Ferrari generated very high peaks of performance. Purple sectors, micro gains in fast corners, an efficiency on the straight that invited optimism. But in the long run, the story changed. When the wind rotated, when the track evolved, when the tire was crossing its prime, the rear part was beginning to ask for absolute precision. And that, in a race, is dangerous. Engineers detected that the problem was not mechanical. It wasn't a simple question of springs or stabilizer bars. It was a complex interplay between rear aerodynamics, dynamic car height, and hybrid management. The radical diffuser generates very efficient charge when the flow is clean. But if the height varies minimally due to weight transfer or a small lateral gust, the flow is destabilized for thousands. Thousands that the pilot feels. Thousands that break trust. In the box, they knew it. The concept is not easy to modify without losing the maximum performance they have sought all winter. And there the real dilemma appeared. Expand the window at the sacrifice of absolute performance? Or keep the roof so high knowing it will be a difficult car to squeeze in changing conditions? Hamilton was very clear in private. The car has the potential to win, but it needs extreme discipline. It does not allow improvisation. It does not forgive approach errors when braking. It does not tolerate aggressive inputs if the balance is not perfect. Leclerc, more accustomed to sensitive rear-wheel cars, saw the positive side. If they manage to understand it, if they manage to stabilize it minimally, it can be a lethal weapon on circuits where aerodynamic confidence rules. But Bahrain left a shared conclusion. The SF26 is not a comfortable car. It is a car that can be brilliant or uncomfortable depending on 1,000 external factors. And in such a tight grid, where tenths separate 4 teams, that sensitivity can make the difference between fighting for victory or losing confidence in the middle of a race. Ferrari did not leave Bahrain defeated. She came out warned that they have built an extreme machine. Because after 3 intense days, Ferrari understood something fundamental. The SF26 will not be a car that can be developed conventionally during the season. It will be a car that will need to be broken in. And that is a huge difference. When a car is born with a wide window, the work during the year consists of squeezing tenths. When you're born with a narrow window, the job is to make it usable before even looking for more performance. Therein lies the real challenge. Both Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton left Bahrain knowing that the season will depend more on understanding than pure speed. Because there is speed, and a lot. The problem is sustaining it. In classification, the SF26 can be a real threat. If the tire is warm, if the wind is stable, if the balance is aligned, the car generates an impressive level of load in fast corners. He is aggressive, efficient, and extremely competitive. But Formula One is not decided only on Saturday. In the race, when the fuel goes down, when the track evolves, when traffic appears, when the temperature changes 5 degrees, that's when consistency matters more than the peak. And Bahrain made it clear that there is the weak point. Hamilton understood that it will take time. Not to be fast, but to anticipate the behavior of the car before it surprises you. Your adaptation will not only be technical, it will be mental. You will have to build trust turn by turn. Leclerc, for his part, knows that he can squeeze sensitive cars. He's done it before. But even for it, the SF26 demands a near-perfect margin of accuracy. Ferrari now has 2 paths. The first, soften the concept, open the window, make the car more predictable even if it loses a little maximum performance. The second, keep the ceiling very high and trust that your pilots can constantly operate at that edge. And there appears the great unknown of the season. If they manage to expand that window, even by 5%, the SF26 can become a fearsome machine. If they don't make it, every weekend will be a roller coaster. Bahrain did not show a slow Ferrari. He showed an extreme Ferrari. And extreme cars admit no middle ground. Or they dominate, or they punish. The season will tell which version we will see. The SF26 is not a conventional car. It is not a conservative evolution. It is not a safe step forward. It is a technical bet to the limit, a concept that seeks the maximum possible performance, even if that means constantly walking a very fine line. And that was what really impacted Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton. They did not come out worried about lack of speed. they did not leave frustrated by reliability. They came away aware that this car demands perfection, because when everything fits, the Ferrari is fearsome. But when something goes wrong, it becomes delicate. In the 3 days in Bahrain, it was clear that the potential is there. The aerodynamic efficiency, the speed on the straight, the peaks of performance in fast corners, everything indicates that Ferrari can fight at the top. Subscribe to continue uploading more of that content. Now you really think about all this.